Can you
Hello,
hear me?
everyone. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. I made it,
Yes.
barely.
Yeah, you did.
I drove over 500 miles today just to be here.
Yep. I'm gonna edit your mic volume a little bit more now that we're live and see. So we were testing around beforehand. Yeah. And for some reason I'm getting feedback. So are you guys hearing feedback as well from your end? Linda or Leonard, do you hear feedback when I speak?
Or me, for that matter.
I know I don't hear it when you're doing it.
Oh, everything sounds fine for me.
Okay.
But
I can deal with it on my end if I need to, but we want to make sure before we start jumping in. So no feedback. All right. Awesome. It'll be just the nails on the chalkboard for me. So this is our first time. Johnny's joining us from his truck. So this is our first time taking this approach.
First time for that. Last week I was in the chat.
Yeah.
I did come on the stage later, but
Yes. So anyway, we are here. We're happy Easter to everybody. So glad that you're here joining us. And we're really excited about this topic tonight. And so any thoughts, Johnny, before we dive in and jump into the topic?
well, anybody that's live or on the replay, please like, subscribe if you haven't already, and help us get to 100 subscribers. How about that?
Well, we have Cammie. Cammie joined us too. So Cammie's joining us all the way from Australia.
Hi, Cammie, is it?
Yeah.
I can't see who's on from this end, but thank you for showing up. Appreciate you.
Yeah, Cammie and I go way back. We knew each other as kids.
That's right. I remember now. Yeah. Yeah.
So Linda, let me know if this gets too bad. And if it does, we'll kick John off and I'll take over the show, okay? Linda's hearing the nails on the chalkboard.
All right, yeah,
You're not hearing it. So, is it okay for us to kind of go forward a little bit? Or do you want me to just kick Johnny off? Just tell me. What do you think, Linda? You're more professional at this.
No, it's fine, Linda. If you need me to go, we can. We'll dial this in another time.
Yeah.
I'll be in the chat.
Well. Oh, she says keep him on. Okay. So I guess I need to just kind of slow my talking maybe a little bit, and maybe that will help. All right. Well, you ready to dive in, Johnny?
Yes, ma'am. Let's do it.
All righty. So welcome to Deservingly You. This is that space where we talk honestly about what it takes to rebuild after systems of control and to learn how to live that life of being self-led again. I'm going to mute you. So we'll see if we can do that. Does that help? So I'll turn his mic on when he's ready to talk. So this is how we learn how to live self-led again. I'm Shannon Avery Briggs. I'm a certified transformational resilience coach and co-founder of Luminous Connections. I am also a survivor of high controlled environments. And as we step into this, just know that this is a coaching space. We are not therapists. We're not trying to claim any of that. We actually focus on awareness, clarity, and forward movement. And tonight we're actually going to be starting in a space that can feel very real, but it isn't always easy to name. The fear of being wrong doesn't always show up loudly. Sometimes it can be really, really subtle. And sometimes it just feels like a hesitation, or we're second guessing, or that moment where something feels like there's those high stakes, even when it shouldn't. And for some of you that have joined us, this may feel very present. You might be going through this right now, like it's something that you're actively navigating. Whereas others, you might be looking in the past and starting to have that understanding of why certain decisions feel so heavy, or why moving forward didn't feel so simple. Now, both sides are part of this.
Don Briggs here, transformational resilience coach as well, and co-founder of MS Connections. And for me, this showed up in a way I didn't recognize at first, because on the outside, right, nothing really changes, and you're still showing up, still having conversations, still moving through your day, but internally there's a different kind of pressure, and I feel like every decision carries more weight than it really should. And like there's more on the line than just being right or wrong. And it's easy to dismiss that. To think you're overthinking it, or making it bigger than it needs to be, overreacting. Like it's, oh, this ain't no big deal or whatnot. But when I look back, that pressure was actually trying to tell me something.
Yeah, and that's why this definitely matters, because a lot of people think that this is about confidence as well as decision making. But what we've actually seen, and what many of you may have experienced, is that something deeper is actually happening underneath of it. And so tonight we're going to start bringing that awareness to that fact. And so if you're live here, please type live in the chat. And if you're watching the replay, type replay, so that way we know that we're here, that you're here, and conversations like this really matter. And so if you relate to this, please tap like, subscribe, hit the notify button so that you don't miss anything of any of the topics that are coming up. And with that, let's dive in a little bit more. So we always like to take the time and set the space together. This is a space for reflection, for awareness, and for growth. And this isn't, by setting this space, it doesn't mean that it's rules, but we want to have a shared understanding. And tonight's conversation might bring up some things that might feel difficult. And you might notice certain reactions within your body or emotions, or even have that pull to respond to something quickly, like in the chat. That's totally normal. But what we, what we want to try to start doing and want to invite you to do is, instead of doing that right away, we want you to sit with it for a minute and stay with your own experience first. Oh, Johnny, you're muted.
There we go. Okay.
There we go.
Just notice what's coming up. You don't have to get it right. It doesn't have to be perfect. You don't have to figure anything out. Just notice what's going on in your own body.
Yep, definitely. And there can be that tendency in our conversations like this to actually move into talking about maybe the organization or elders or those past experiences. Those are real. But tonight, what we want to focus on is actually what's happening inside. And so we want to stay on topic and keep bringing it back to your experience. Did I mute you again?
Okay. You got to remember that this is about awareness, not reaction. Yep. I got to remember to unmute and mute myself.
So you're absolutely welcome to interact in the chat. We want you here with us, but just to keep it grounded, let's keep with what you're noticing rather than having us like point to outwardness. So, and if any of this feels like it's too much, take care of yourself and step away if you need to, because that's part of the work.
Before we move forward, let's just, if you would, just take a breath with me, okay? Breathe in for a count of 4. And then out for a count of 6. And in through your nose and out slowly. Let's try that again. Breathe in for a count of 4 through your nose. And out. On a count of 6, out slowly. Okay. Thank you.
So if we move into this too, as we move into it, notice how you're arriving tonight. And if you feel like it, drop one word in the chat that describes how you're showing up tonight. All right. So as we move into this topic, this isn't just something that we have studied as coaches. It's actually something that we've experienced. And it's something that we've seen over and over in the people that we work with. In our coaching, some of the people that we've worked with, they're navigating fears. It's all over the place. And it comes in many forms, maybe fear of change, fear of loss, fear of making the wrong move. And when we woke up from the organization, we noticed something, that the fear that people experience after leaving a high control environment actually felt more intense. And it initially, to us, when we were looking at it, was like, it didn't seem like it would make sense, because the assumption is that once you're out and you're out of that, all of that, things should feel easier, right? But what we kept seeing was the opposite, that fear felt bigger and heavier and more present. And that's what got us really curious, not just like what people were afraid of, but why does this feel so intense?
And for me, this part is pretty important because it's easy to assume that once you're out, things should feel easier. That would make sense, but and that the fear should just go away. Because this wasn't just one situation or one person. It was something we kept seeing. People were out, they were making their own choices, but that internal experience didn't shift the way that you'd expect or that they would expect. If anything, it felt stronger and more amplified. And that's where it shifted from just noticing and experiencing fear to really asking what's driving this.
And I'm curious, like with those in the chat, does this sound familiar, that it felt amplified and intense as you experienced, especially when you first left the organization? You can put a thumbs up, you can put a yep, you can put any of that. So when we talk about the fear of being wrong, this isn't just talking about getting something incorrect or making the wrong choice. In those high controlled environments, being wrong actually carried a very specific meaning. It meant the loss of identity, the loss of belonging, the loss of safety. And for many, that didn't just feel temporary, it could actually feel eternal. And so now when that uncertainty shows up, it doesn't feel neutral. It doesn't feel open. It actually feels like something that we need to avoid to protect ourselves. So I wanted to see too if, like, doing that breath that we just did on the previous thing, did that help kind of settle you down? Did that feel? Because if we, whenever we are experiencing these types of things, like reconnecting with your breath is a wonderful way to ground yourself and to actually activate that like calming your nervous system down is reconnecting to your breath. I especially, I'm always telling John when he gets stressed out, he has a tendency to breathe right up here, right up in his, right at the top of his chest. And so I'll always encourage him to breathe, go all the way to your diaphragm. So that is one of the things that can definitely help. So we want to talk about what we've learned. It's in our coaching, we see 4 core fears that will show up all the time: rejection, ruin, regret, and responsibility. And this isn't just theoretical. This is what we see in real conversations, in those real decisions and real moments that people are trying to move forward. And in transformational resilience coaching, these 4 fears actually drive the most hesitation. And it's not because there's a real imminent threat. It's because our mind ends up starting to loop those worst case scenarios. Rejection, excuse me, rejection is that fear of losing love and belonging. So if you've ever found yourself people pleasing or holding back like when you're actually thinking something or feeling, that's this type of fear. That's that rejection fear. Now, ruin is that fear where everything could fall apart. And that's when our mind starts jumping way ahead to those outcomes that haven't even happened. It's that worry. And most of the time, those never happen. Now, regret is that fear of making a choice that you can't undo. And so instead of choosing, you end up staying stuck just so to make sure that you get it right. And then finally, we've got responsibility. And responsibility is that fear that it's all on you now. That once you make your choice, you have to own what comes next. All of these fears, these 4 fears, are normal. And when they're running in the background, they make everything feel heavier than it is. So then the question becomes, why do these feel bigger and more intense and more amplified after we leave a high controlled environment? Well, let's take a look at what happens after we leave. So to put it very, very simply, when we have those fears that are normal, they don't disappear. We've got those 4 fears. But when we leave that high controlled environment, what ends up happening is that they end up getting activated all at once. And so when that ends up happening, they don't stay separate. They actually stack. And those things like, I might be wrong. I could lose people. Everything could fall apart. It's all on me. And then all of those start running together, and it creates overwhelm and that pause of like that frozen pause that we end up experiencing. So does this sound like does this relate? Do you guys relate to these types of that stacking idea? So this is what it can sound like when this happens then, when these fears start stacking. There's not one clear thought. There's that loop and the back and forth, and there's no clean answer. And when you hear, well, what if I leave and it's actually the truth? That is outcome fear. It's our mind's way of doing the what if machine, and it's running to that idea of eternal stakes. And then what it does is it stacks the regret fear with those old belonging conditions. So then it freezes our choices. And then what makes this so heavy and so hard is that every direction feels like it's coming with a cost. And it also feels like it's coming from all sorts of different directions. And if I move, I lose something. If I stay, I lose something. So instead of making the choices, we end up staying in that loop and trying to think our way to certainty. Now, for me, the way that I experience this, and because what we said earlier is that a lot of times we don't have the words for like what's happening. So for me, music has been huge, and it speaks to me in a way that it kind of translates what's happening within me. And so sometimes the words of the song don't even seem to align with what I'm experiencing, but I can shift that meaning to help me work through those emotions. And so, like I said, the words can shift meaning, and the rhythm itself express what I don't have the words to say yet. And when I'm standing in that stacked fear, for me, I don't know if any of if any of you have ever heard the song by Louis Capaldi, the Someone You Loved, not the story of it, but the feeling. Now, it's the feeling when I listen to that song and I'm imagining, it's like something is gone and I don't know yet how to stand without it. I'm going to pause for just a second because Linda asked a question. She said she wasn't quite clear on this. Did you suggest for us it's not to go back to our time in the org as you ask us questions? If so, why am I hearing questions about our time? It's more about what you're experiencing, Linda, like what you feel in your body. That's what we're, when you think about spending the time in the org, what being able to learn how to identify what is coming up and and being able to recognize which fear is coming up. Is that clearer? Yes, like what if you can identify some of it could be what you're experiencing now. Yeah. Yep, and what to call it. Yeah. A lot of times when people like first leave the organization, all of those fears, especially when they first walk out, it can feel like it's compacted. Okay, got it. All right, good. Thanks. I'll turn it over to you now, Johnny. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's no wonder, when people are living in this uh, mindset that they freeze. They stay because what if I leave and I lose everyone? If I'm wrong, I'll regret it forever. If I speak, I'm rejected. So there's more people physically in and mentally out than I ever even. I didn't even know that was really a thing, but it's so prominent, And it's not that you don't know what you want when you're in that space. It's that every option feels risky. So like I said, people will just freeze. I think that's human nature. So the mind keeps searching for the one choice with no loss, and that's where people get stuck because or not because they're incapable, because none of the options feel completely safe. And I don't think even when nothing feels fully safe, we can still choose the next best thing for ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's going on here isn't weakness. It's actually the way that we're training. So we're actually kind of taking a look at what we've gone through and these fears from a different lens. Our system, while we were in it, it learned to equate that belonging with safety and certainty with virtue. So when those decisions show up, our body will just trigger those fire alarms. And the other thing too is because of those alarms, it doesn't feel like a normal choice. When we face something like this, it might feel permanent. It might feel irreversible. The stakes are way high. And the other thing too is that it's hard to trust yourself when we've got all of these things firing in our nervous system. And then when we've got that, and then our brain kicks in and starts pairing it with, well, what if all of those negative futures, it does what it's designed to do, our brain. It wants to delay it. It wants to pull us back, and it wants to stop that action. And what it's doing when it's doing this is it's trying to protect you, but it's using old data. And so from a time when being wrong felt like everything was on the line.
Yeah, and your system isn't working against you. It's actually guarding you kind of with yesterday's patterns, right? And yesterday's system. So that system one, it's doing its best protective job, like it always did before. Helpful in real danger, but unhelpful when you're trying to rebuild your life. You know, and system two is your slower subconscious, not subconscious, but your conscious dashboard. Okay? It can notice the loop, name the fear, and choose a better option or move. So the mind searches for the one choice with zero risk. And that's where people get stuck, because that choice doesn't exist. It's nowhere to be found.
And so this, when we can start identifying those spots, this is where we can start to shift it. You don't have to eliminate the fear, but learning how to recognize it and taking a step back and going, okay, is this, a rejection fear, or is it a responsibility fear? That can help us to identify what we should be doing next. And so when you feel, for example, the what if spiral, that can be a cue. We can pause, we can slow and take a breath. And as we learn these, we can start naming what's happening. And then, like John said, we can start learning how to choose the next right step based on what matters to you now instead of what happened to us in the past. So is this making sense? Is it relating? Yep, no, so all is good. So just to have a quick connect of where we've been on our conversation so far, we named those core fears, those 4 core fears, and we've seen how they can stack, especially after we leave a high control environment, and how they create that internal loop where everything and every option feels like it comes with a cost. And we also saw why the body treats decisions like those high stakes. So when this happens, what's coming next? It's actually pressure, and pressure needs a release. So what we can see when this happens is a relief valve in a sense. And if you take a step back and just observe with, maybe on, other chats that you've been in, or Facebook groups, or those types of things, you might see people talking about the organization. We might talk about elders. We might point out patterns. And there are sometimes that we generalize, and sometimes that we vent as well. None of this is wrong. It's not wrong. But it's in a moment like this, it actually can soothe that isolation, that fear of rejection, and it creates that quick certainty and a sense of control. So in a sense, when we see this going on, it's like a protest, and it says that the pain actually came from out there, which briefly can quiet that question of what if I'm wrong?
Well, yeah, it actually makes sense, because when that internal pressure builds, especially over time, our system tries to regulate it. It reaches for something familiar to hold on to, and to let that pressure out or release that. And we can see this in relationships too. When people start practicing speaking up, they may share what's not working, but it can come out as an attack instead of a move toward some sort of understanding or compromise, because it works, not for very long.
Yeah. The other thing that it does is that it can lower that anxiety in the moment. But here's the thing, is that our attention ends up staying locked on the old power source. And that fear isn't resolved. It actually continues in the loop. Now, John and I have colleagues who are in high performance coaching who call this type of thing that happens pacifying instead of progressing. The thing is, it creates that connection because people end up bonding through that shared outrage and their shared pain. And once again, for a moment, it soothes that isolation. And it's not wrong. That's the other thing. We're not trying to say any of this is wrong.
That's also why it keeps coming back, right? Even when you feel like you've already worked through it, but the brain will always return or gravitate toward what's familiar.
Yeah. So one of the things that John and I learned through our own journey, as well as through our coaching, is like shifting. So it's not about shutting it down. It's actually to learn to notice it. And when we, I think for pretty much from day one, when we started the show, even, it's like we've encouraged you to like listen to your body and pay attention to your body. And so when one of those impulses show up, we relearn a habit of pausing. So rather than reacting, and we actually start learning to be able to name what actually is there, not in those generalization aspects, but in that specific experience and the specific pain or the specific harm that we experienced. And then what we do is we can choose the right step to move forward. Because a lot of times, if you can see, I know that you've seen some of those conversations where it is just a loop instead of having a way out and to move forward. So some of the ideas around a next step forward that we can learn as we grow is a boundary. We can learn to have a request. And the thing is whatever you choose, it's a direction that will help you to come out of that loop. And then this is where it starts showing up in that healing journey. Does this resonate with people? Is this kind of tough tonight? I know, especially when we start talking about some of the things that we have experienced. So this is where it can start coming into focus, and where we also see that this isn't random. What we have been talking about shows up right at the beginning, like right in that beginning part of the healing journey, that phase 1 of piercing the illusion. Awareness begins and you start feeling the wobble, and that's before you have those words to be able to address it. You know that something isn't feeling right, but you can't, you might not have the words and you can't explain it. And so that can feel very, very confusing when you can't fully explain it. Johnny, can you unmute, please?
Yes, thank you. I was going to say, all right. I was going to say, well, actually, I did say that's actually very important, because a lot of people think if they can't explain it, there must be something wrong.
Yeah, nothing is wrong. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing's wrong. But I'm sorry, I keep trying to interrupt you.
No, you go. You go ahead. I'm done. I'm done.
Thank you, thank you. All right, so language actually is behind our awareness. So our awareness and our body and our brain will pick a lot of this stuff up before sometimes we can find the words to express it. And that's why, like, taking the time and really peeling back these layers, why it matters. It's not a personal failure. This is just a phase of that journey. And when you can start seeing it as a phase, it actually can take some of that pressure off, and it actually can help you to identify paths that can help you move forward. So we want to take a moment here too, because like I said, we talked about some stuff that can be pretty challenging to our nervous system. So just want to pause for a minute and ask you to soften your gaze and unclench your jaw, drop your shoulders. I have to not like frown because I have a tendency to squint when I'm on the screen. Inhale slowly through your nose, fill your belly, and exhale longer than you exhale, or exhale longer than you inhaled. Let's do that again. Inhale for a count of 4. And exhale for a count of 6. And if emotions are coming up, it's okay. You don't have to fix anything. Just breathe. Feel your feet on the floor. Notice 3 things that you can see. 2 things that you can feel. And 1 thing that you're grateful for right now. As your breath evens out, just set a quiet intention for yourself. How do I want to feel as I continue? What's one kind thing I can do for myself this evening?
Just take a moment to notice where you are now, compared to a few minutes ago. That is. No pressure, just awareness. A little bit of hindsight.
And when you're ready, come back to the room. And we'll move on. Thank you, Linda, for saying that. And right now we can't put the comments up on the screen. So she says, having us notice our body is what our body is feeling is a good thing, because we were taught to shove those feelings somewhere else and not being able to acknowledge what we were feeling. So here we can look at it. Yay, you're back. Thank you. I appreciate you. I appreciate you so much. So we've covered a lot today. It may not have felt like a lot, but it was a lot. And we talked about fear. We talked about how it stacks, what it can sound like, what's happening underneath of it, and what you might be noticing. So it might be something in yourself or just something that feels a little clearer. So I want to open up this space and let me find the link. So we'll put it on in the chat if anybody wants to come on the screen and share what they might have experienced with this. Oops, wrong button. Wrong button. Thanks for your patience. There we go. So if something stood out or something felt different, even just a new thought, we'd love to hear you guys. So And I have my screen split, so.
And remember too that sometimes just hearing yourself think or out loud, or saying one thing can shift a lot. And, and sometimes just being here is enough, and just listening in. Oh, we appreciate you.
Definitely. I'm really curious if any of this was kind of a new thought to anybody tonight. Well, we can go on, and if somebody decides they want to come on, that's fine. They can click the link. So if you want to keep this going, we're continuing inside the Exit Generation community. This is a Facebook community that we have created to help us to have the conversation. And Linda is going to join us on the stage here. Let me get through this, and then I'll come back to you, Linda. So tomorrow what we're going to do is we're going to meet in a Zoom room, and we use these 5 questions. Each week we choose 5 questions that align with the topic that we've covered. And we use these and we explore what came up. And this isn't to fix anything. We start noticing things about ourselves and start making commitment to ourselves and start building our self-trust. And so there we can, but it gives us a little bit more private space when we're there versus being out here on all over YouTube. So we'll come back to this here in a second, John. I'm going to bring Linda up, okay? So let me.
Of course. Do it.
She's coming. See why we need Ruby back? You be with Johnny until.
But you're learning it, and so am I. So good for us. And what we're talking about, audience, is how to use this certain thing called StreamYard, which buttons to push to get certain results. So I'm still learning it, and she's still learning it too, and talking about how Ruby used to kind of be behind the scenes and support her when doing this. So tonight's subject is really a huge one for me because, okay, back when I was in the org, any mistake I made, any bad decision I made, anything that was wrong, all of it led to not making it through Armageddon. So it meant my death. Mm-hmm. That's where I was heading if I made mistakes.
Yeah.
But today, I don't see it that way. I have more options. There's more possibilities. It's really not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Which is how I was trained to think, as though if you make your mistakes, it's the end of the world for you because you're not going to make it through.
Yeah. So did this topic really resonate then, like with what you were going through in the past? And hopefully I explained it in a way that it's like it's not that we don't want to talk about like what we've gone through, but it's more like naming it and how can we move forward.
Right. And being that we weren't allowed to pay attention to our intuition, we were taught that the heart is treacherous, who can trust it. We were gaslit to not pay attention to all this stuff that is being suggested here to pay attention to, and then to call it what it is or to label it. Yep. So we didn't know what to call it sometimes because we weren't familiar with it, because we weren't really suggested to feel it or experience it. We were taught that trusting on the organization and their way of making decisions for us was the safer route. But today, my own reasoning skills can be a safer route.
Yeah.
My mistakes that I have made contribute to that because I've gained wisdom. I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned. So in other words, positive reinforcement from good decisions that I've made that have had positive results, and then I've gotten negative reinforcement from the bad mistakes I've made. Maybe I had to pay a parking ticket, or maybe I had, I had to get a bad consequence, but it didn't mean I wasn't going to make it through Armageddon. It didn't mean God disapproved of me. It just meant I walked through something and I gained wisdom. That's a benefit.
And one of the things that really that I really was thinking about too is where our safety was, right? And the safety was within the structure and the rules. And so we were looking externally for a sense of safety.
Absolutely.
And it was full of fear. We were part of the rules had to do with fear. And so it just also feeds a lot of the stacking that we end up experiencing then after we leave a high control environment. And this can be, even when you're, like you had mentioned even last night, like leaving an abusive relationship can also bring on some of these types of feelings, especially because our nervous system is like on high alert, and it ends up stacking all of those.
Yes. Thank you for I was even confused and had to ask that question, and you stopped and helped me out with that. So thank you for that too. Yeah.
Well, thanks for speaking up too, so that because sometimes it makes total sense to me and I'm saying it, and so I want to make sure that you guys, that I am making sense as I'm sharing these thoughts and ideas.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. So yeah, that this is a huge one for me, and it's really opposite from what I experienced growing up and what was called the truth. But today my truth is I get to have these experiences, I get to look at them, I get to label them, call them what they are, and it's helpful to think ahead. What am I going to do next time this comes up for me, or this fear comes up for me, or this hesitation comes up for me, and recognize that this hesitation means whatever it means to me, which could be anything, and it could mean something else to someone else. And thinking ahead and preparing how I'm going to handle it can be very helpful, because in that moment I can go, I label it, and then what'll come to mind is how I've decided it before, how I'm going to handle it, rather than hold my Diet Coke and take off my earrings, get ready to hit the streets with it, get all ghetto, right? Because in the moment it's like you find yourself thinking stuff you've never thought before and are totally out of character. It's like, this is not who I am. I need to calm myself down. So yeah.
Could you see too, when I was talking about kind of like what can happen in some of the chats and the posts and the text back and forth, like that's a relief or a release, that release valve, but then that fear can come back. The fear can come back if we don't address the fear. And that's what we want to be able to help people to do, is to basically learn what to do with that.
Yes. Didn't John say name it and claim it? Or something similar.
It says name it to tame it.
Name it to tame it. Nice.
Yeah. Once you become aware.
Like we actually have the power to do that, which was not my mindset in the past.
Yeah, it just activates a different part of your brain, the logical part, instead of the survival part, The prefrontal cortex, that activates that, and once you become aware of something, it's like looking behind that curtain. You can't unsee it.
Yeah.
So then it gives you, kind of takes you out of denial, so you can work on it and recognize it for what it is. Or at least start heading in that direction. Yeah.
And before, we just didn't even get to acknowledge it existed, let alone name it and call it what it is, and even think ahead of time, what am I going to do about this next time? And then when it does come up again, you have it automatically in your brain. You kind of retrieve it. Oh yeah. And I know for me, my my mood will want to go to taking somebody to the streets, right? But I've already decided my better way. My better way would be to use my nice words or something to that effect, or set a boundary, which is what you brought up too. Because sometimes that's all that's needed is setting a boundary that's not in a mean way, but it actually dignifies myself and the other person if I choose to set a boundary, and a pre-thought pre-thought boundary, because boundaries just were not a thing when you're in a high control group. Those are just not allowed. Like boundaries, what's that? You know, what is a boundary?
Yeah.
Never had a concept of that. So
Yeah.
after we leave, we have these more options. And when we were still in, we only had like, let's just say 10 to the 100 options we have out here after we've left. So that's pretty cool. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Our options are endless out here. Choices. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, any other thoughts, Linda?
You know, John just said choices. I can remember people telling me, you have choices, and thinking that was the most foreign thought out there.
Mm-hmm.
Just shifting from when someone is in a high control group and you are directed and you take advice from someone else and they direct you in the proper way, to I have choices on what decisions I'm going to make, is a really different atmosphere. And it's kind of scary at first, but you get up and go again. You get to be scared and do it anyway. So isn't that the definition of courageous, right?
Yes.
Yep.
And if you're not afraid of making mistakes, if it doesn't mean you're not going to make it through Armageddon, then you'll just get to see what the physical universe is saying back to you. You know, just you'll see the consequences of your actions. Sometimes I might need to do something 17 more times till I learn my lesson, but that's just how many times I need to do it. And then eventually,
the
right?
universe is going to make sure you know.
Exactly. So
It'll bring it back until you get it.
which encourages a shift in my behavior, which is that whole shift happens thing.
Yep.
Which is good. Yeah, thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so should we continue? All right, Linda, I'm going to take you off.
Thank you, Linda. Appreciate it.
All right, so like we said, this is what we're going to be talking tomorrow. I'm going to mute you, Johnny, for a second. And so we're going to be talking tomorrow about these 5 questions. We bring it into our Exit Generation Facebook group, and we explore a little bit about what we learned today, and also like what might have come up for you. And we're going to be using these 5 questions tomorrow to do that. And it's not to fix anything. We just want to notice it and learn how to start naming it and have a little bit more space to do that, and hear from other people too, have a different perspective and a different, because a lot of times, like what we said, when we get into those pressure release conversations and activities, and those end up looping, a lot of times the message is very, very similar. We don't, although the stories are individual, but there's a lot of commonality. But when we start having conversations like this, we can see a lot more diversity.
All right, so yeah, because this isn't about getting rid of fear. It's about learning how to move, even when the fear is present. Courage, like definition of courage, like Linda mentioned, definitely.
Yeah, so when we're able to be in that space with people who understand the context, this can make things feel clearer and lighter. And then, and it also gives us an opportunity, to practice starting to share starting to share what some of our ideas are, and because we didn't have that opportunity. And so I will be putting the group link in a post under this video, so that if you're interested in joining, you can do that. And also that way you can get the reminder of the Zoom link. We set those up as events within that Facebook group. So here's the other thing is, we're not going to just leave you with what we uncovered tonight. Just, okay, here's all these fears. Good luck. It's not going to be like that. We actually spent that time to understand the fear and how it shows up and what can be happening underneath those pressure releases. So the next step is, what can we actually do with that? What are some of the ideas that we can start putting into our life, the habits and those types of things that can help us to address the fears that we experience. So we're going to continue this conversation next week, and we're going to walk through how we might be able to calm our system when that fear starts to take over, and also how we might work with that what if spiral when it happens in real time. The other thing too is how we can start taking those small steps without needing that certainty first.
Yeah, and we'll be talking about building trust in yourself through simple, repeatable actions. So today helped you see something. Next week we start working with it.
Yep.
And
so we want to start. I heard this in Linda's comments tonight about building that self-trust. So when we do these types of things and we start putting these habits in place, that self-trust ends up building, and it becomes simpler as we go along. And they become repeatable. So if today helped you see something, then next week we're going to start helping you to start working with that. So as always, we like to share a quote at the end. We can learn to see that there is light, and even in the midst of darkness.
Sometimes learning to see it is where it begins, like we talked about before, awareness. So thank you for being here. Like always, we appreciate each and every one of you. And if you're in the chat, or if you're in the replay, put replay in the comments so we know that you're there. Appreciate you.
Yeah. And if something landed, once again, please like, subscribe, and hit the notification button so that you don't miss any of the topics coming up. The other thing that I want to say is, if you know somebody that's rebuilding, please share this with them. If you can close your eyes and imagine that vast sea of those that have come out of that high controlled environment. And if you could imagine people that are walking together and healing together and truly experiencing life, we want to be able, we're not for everybody, just like everybody is, everybody relates to different things. So there's different coaches out there. There's different ways to help. There's different ways to heal. But if this relates to you, and if you think that somebody might benefit from it, please share. So, because we do want to be able to help as many people that are coming out, because we know what it felt like. And we want to be able to have you guys connect with us. If you want to, you can reach out here on the channel, or you can find us on Facebook. And then finally, the thing that I personally want to say, and then I'll open the mic up for Johnny. We actually we hit a record on the last week's episode. It was the highest count for our views. So thank you to everybody that has shared and has liked. And we do want to be able to help as many as we can. So please continue what you're doing, and we really appreciate it. And so with that, Johnny.
Well, I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here. And of course, I think Shannon just said it. You can reach out to us through the channel or on Facebook anytime and have a conversation. And again, thank you for being here.
All right. We'll see you guys later.